Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark, second coaching episode of the week. We finally are past the Super Bowl. I'm here with my boy Dale, my buddy Dale. You can find us over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin or on Twitter at Dynasty_Dale. Pretty good Super Bowl last night. You know, it kind of stinks that it came down to a penalty in the last play, but, you know, just the fact that the Chiefs were able to bring it back. You know, I'm not going to lie. I tuned out of a lot of the third quarter because
Right.
I thought that Mahomes was cooked and I did not want to watch the halftime special. So I kind of just went and did other stuff for a little while. And I came back
Right.
and I was like, what in the world is this? They're coming back, scoring nonstop. I was like, dang, it's actually a game still. Okay. All right. And then Chiefs end up winning. So
Mhm.
congrats to them. You know, I was kind of, it's funny. I
Definitely.
predicted them to win by a field goal. So not too bad.
That is true. Yeah. On the final result, I'm not too surprised. I mean, I'm surprised they had a halftime a 10-point halftime deficit, but
I
still,
know.
it was a very good game, and it was definitely a masterclass by Andy.
Yes, it was. Oh my goodness, the
Mhm.
adjustments that because that's one thing Andy Reid is famous for
Yes.
is not adjusting, right?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
just to see that from him, it's pretty impressive. And you know, now
Mhm.
Matt Nagy is Super Bowl coach. Matt Nagy, you know,
Whoa.
he's a good
Whoa.
coach, right? He's got a couple Super Bowl rings now,
No.
I think, on the back
Yeah,
of
I guess.
Patrick Mahomes. So, no, it was
Yeah.
a pretty good game. You know, people are talking about that as one of the best Super Bowl games of all time. I'm like, I don't know if I can go that far. You know,
I still thought it was
it
very
was
solid,
good.
and it was very back and forth. It had a lot of different moments in there that made it special.
It was good, but I mean, the 28-3 will always go down as the best Super Bowl of all time. I mean,
Whoa.
that is
Well,
just.
that's different. Like,
But
that's in
then
a league of its own.
the second Super Bowl would have to be the Eagles versus the Patriots. Even though the Patriots lost, like that game was like 100 some points, 1,000 some to combined
Yeah,
yard. Like if you want a shootout, that's what you want. You know what I mean? So, you
right.
know, this one was kind of a all around team performance. You had some special teams go, you know, domination there, some
Mhm.
defensive touchdowns. So it was kind of just a very well rounded game, right? And that's why I think it was pretty
Yeah,
good. But you know, if you're just going for best Super Bowls of all time, those two definitely are ahead of this one, you know? So,
right.
all right. So that said, we are jumping into our coaching roundup. Yesterday, we talked about Sean Payton, why we like the trade, why we really like the move for the Denver Broncos. And if you're listening, I still have a little bit of a cough, a little bit of a raspy voice, so I'm gonna try and make it through these podcasts. But you know, gotta do what you gotta do. But yeah, we got through Sean Payton yesterday. Today we're gonna be talking about Frank Reich signing with the Carolina Panthers. This one was a little bit out of left field for us. You know, I was really thinking that they were going to retain their current GM or well, their current head coach. What was his name?
Mhm. Wilkes.
Steve Wilkes. That's right. So he's a defensive
Mhm.
guy. The fact that he got them one game away from playoffs, I thought that did enough for him to, you know,
Yes.
earn a second chance. That defense is dominant anyway, so you
Mhm.
know, it kind of just made sense.
Yes.
So that's why this hiring, and you can talk your thoughts here in just 1 second, but this hiring was really
Yep.
odd to me because like this offense is a mess, man. They've got DJ Moore, that's really their only weapon on the offensive side of the ball. I know you
Mhm.
got Deonta Foreman, you got Chuba Hubbard as a good tandem of running backs, but you could definitely use an upgrade there. Their quarterback is Sam Darnold or nobody. I mean, it's probably going to be a
Or
rookie.
yeah,
So, you
probably.
know, you can use probably a good tight end. You need two wide receivers. You need a running back. You need a quarterback. The offensive line is got some promise, but it's got like two pieces out of five. So it's just like this whole thing is a mess. So, like, what is Frank Reich gonna do for this team? I don't really understand.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think I would have much rather see Steve Wilkes in there. I think he more than earned it, and I feel that's gonna backfire on David Tepper a little bit
No,
with that. So
go
I
ahead.
know, I know. Yeah, and with Tepper, like, he usually likes to go all in, and I think he was trying to get a splash another splash hire
I
with,
get it.
Frank Wright, but I mean, I get that Frank Wright has been a head coach before, has experience, but so does Steve Wilkes. Like, he
Right.
coached a horrific Arizona Cardinals team with Josh Rosen, and I think he deserved another shot. Definitely, I feel over Frank Wright, who even though Frank Wright was over 500, he never really he never really had a very consistent good offense as an Indy, where you see him as a good hire for a head coaching position, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Like, once Frank Reich got fired, the talk really became, oh, he's going to get hired somewhere. Like, I can't believe they fired him and blah, 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 blah. But it's like Frank Reich never really lived up to what the billing was for him. And,
Yep. Yep.
he always had a lot of potential, and
Yep.
it always came short. And,
Yeah.
that was with a decently stacked roster in Indy. And I know that they
Mhm.
never got the weapons that were necessary, but now you're in the same boat with Carolina. So it's like, I don't know. I don't really expect much from this. He's going to get probably 3 years of a leash.
Mhm.
They're probably going
Probably.
to get a quarterback in this upcoming draft. They're gonna draft somebody at 9 more than likely. They're going to take whoever falls to
Mhm.
them at that point.
Yep.
And you just got to kind of hope that while they're developing this offense and hopefully able to put something together on the field offensively, this defense can be held together and doesn't start to degrade, because that's kind of what
Right.
started to happen in Indy. They had the offensive line, an amazing offensive line. They were competitive, at least with Philip Rivers. They tried to get Wentz, didn't work out so well, but like all the while, year after year, their weapons never really got better. The offensive line started to get older and started to degrade.
Mhm.
The defense started to get older and started to degrade. So they just were never able to really keep it going. And whether that's a Ballard thing or that's a Reich thing, I don't really know. But yeah, they just need
Mhm.
to do something. And yeah, I'm not excited about this whatsoever. It's just, what does it do for
Yeah.
this division?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I mean, I think for Frank Wright, though, that with him being the first ever offensive head coach for the Panthers, I think that was that's what they wanted to kinda change up a little bit.
yeah,
So and it's really gonna be his first time to develop a quarterback, because they kept bringing in these veteran guys. It's after Luck retired, you had Philip Rivers, you
right.
had it's
They
it's
had
the Matt
Brissett. Yeah, they had
Ryan.
a year of
Yeah,
Brissett.
yeah,
So, I mean, I do
yeah.
feel kind of bad for Frank Reich because
So,
he got
yeah,
shafted in Indy. Like,
he
just
he he
shafted. He
he
was supposed to
really
have
did on
Andrew Luck and
quarterback.
just, yeah, complete dumpster fire there. But so let's talk real quick on the weapons that they do have currently. So all signs point to them needing to completely retool this offense, right? We just talked about it. They need offensive line help still. They need a running back upgrade, but they might not do that right away. They might be able to just kind of roll with Chuba and Deonta Foreman for a little while right now.
Right.
DJ Moore is a good player. He's inconsistent, but what do we think about these weapons with Frank Reich in there? Let's assume that they get a rookie quarterback. Kind of the odds-on favorite is probably Anthony Richardson. They're at
Mhm.
9, so let's assume that they
Yeah.
get Anthony Richardson, who's more mobile. It overcomes a little bit of those offensive line issues. He's not the most accurate quarterback yet. He's pretty raw and everything like that. We talked about him in our rookie breakdown, but you know, can he support someone like a DJ Moore to be a top tier wide receiver option with Frank Reich's scheme?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with no. I don't think DJ Moore's ever. I don't. I've lost faith in DJ Moore. I don't think he's ever gonna be. I mean, I feel he is the guy in Carolina, but I think he's similar along the lines of like Michael Pittman. I think
That's fair.
I kind of feel he's. I mean, I don't. I wouldn't say they probably have a similar skill set. I don't really watch a lot of DJ Moore. But I kind of feel their roles are fairly similar in the offense. So that's kind of what I expect him to be. So I don't really think he's going to be a world beater by any means, but I think he's going to be serviceable. But that's about it in this offense. I don't really have much faith in uh, their skill positions. I think their wide receiver two would be Laviska Shenault, and
Yeah.
we've seen him be not being able to stay on the field. So,
He actually seems like someone that would be very interested in our Frank Reich
yes,
system.
I definitely agree with
Year 4 breakout for Laviska Shenault.
Yeah,
So
hopefully.
looking at it right now, it looks like the Carolina Panthers, they have the number 9 overall pick number 40, so pretty high in the second round. Another second rounder with pick number 62, a third rounder, fourth rounder, a couple fourth rounders, and a fifth. So, they have quite a few picks pretty early in this upcoming draft. I can see them, really going heavy on weapons
Offense.
offensive
Yes.
side. This defense is
Yes.
good enough that you really don't need much there. That's the one nice thing. So let's assume that they get Anthony Richardson at 9, someone like a Zay Flowers or, one of these other guys, a Keishon Butte at 40. You could even, again, you could go offensive lineman at 62. And then let's say they get someone like an Israel Abakanda at 94. Then this offense is kind of cooking with gas, but again, you got a lot of youth there, and it's kind of it makes you a little nervous. So, the Carolina Panthers, Frank Reich, I don't know if he does much for them right now. We really need to see what they do in the NFL draft and after free agency. If they can retool this offensive line, or if they can get someone like an Anthony Richardson, we could be talking. I think Frank Reich is creative enough that he'd be able to scheme someone like Anthony Richardson to fantasy success. But as of right now, there's nothing on this team that is exciting. With Sam Darnold at the quarterback, I don't care if Sam Darnold's been okay. Like, DJ Moore is worthless right now.
Yes.
Chuba Hubbard, Deonta Foreman, maybe those guys are going to be okay still for fantasy football. But, I just don't really have much promise with these guys with Frank Reich. Frank Reich is a decent coach. Don't get me wrong. He's had a pretty rough streak so far. I don't want to give him I don't want to put all the blame on him for what happened in Indy, but
definitely,
it's just there's not a lot to work with right now, and especially if they're thinking about trading up for a quarterback. There's a lot of rumors about them trading to 1 or 3 just to jump a couple guys that need quarterbacks, and it's like at that point you're giving up more assets, and it's just it's very, very nerve-wracking. So Frank Reich should be a good addition long-term for this. I think maybe in year 2, we're a little bit more excited about the weapons. But as of right now, in year 1, I don't think he's going to do anything like a Sean Payton we talked about yesterday. I think Sean Payton's good enough that he's going to be able to save someone like Russell Wilson and a Jerry Jeudy and kind of make them fantasy relevant. Frank Reich is not going to have that star power that that someone like Sean Payton does. So that's the synopsis on Frank Reich. Do you have any last minute thoughts on him before we move on to a couple offensive coordinators?
Nope.
All right. A couple of coordinators we're going to talk about here are going to be Brian Schottenheimer and Kellen Moore. So just like yesterday, we talked about Matt LaFleur and Nathaniel Hackett being kind of they're linked, right? Because the only reason that Nathaniel Hackett got hired with the Jets is because Mike LaFleur got fired. Well, same thing here. Kellen Moore gets fired for Dallas. They had to put a fall guy, put it on somebody. So Kellen Moore got blasted into the sun. He gets picked up immediately by the Los Angeles Chargers, and he's replaced by Brian Schottenheimer. Now, let's talk about Kellen Moore first. So Kellen Moore, he's very frustrating for me because people are very excited about Kellen Moore, and I don't love him that much because, you go back the last couple of years, ever since he became the offensive coordinator, I believe he became OC in 2019. The offenses have been very, very good, but they're very run heavy, right? You go back to 2019, they're number 6 in points. Like, this is pretty average. They're top 10 in points every single year. They're pretty high in yardage for the team every single year, plays, averages per and everything. But the problem is in key situations, they crumple so badly. Kellen Moore is unable to adjust properly to when defenses are able to adjust to him. And that's a big problem. The second problem I think that Kellen Moore has is he is not capable of scheming. Like, for fantasy football, it's terrible. Like, he cannot consistently feed guys, and that is a massive problem for fantasy football, right? He's had CeeDee Lamb, who is, by all accounts, an alpha wide receiver. Everything we've seen from CeeDee Lamb for like 2 years now is give this guy the ball, and he's going to do nasty things with it, right? This year, they finally were able to do that somewhat. Still kind of limited him more than I think was necessary, but it's just like, come on, you got to be able to feed your number one guy the ball. And now he's going over to the Chargers, and they're probably moving on. All reports are that they're going to move on from Keenan Allen to save some money, which means that they're going to have Mike Williams for 3 or 5 games. Who knows? Austin Eckler should be good. Kellen Moore loves to run the ball. You were able to see what he could do with someone like Tony Pollard. I would say Austin Eckler is probably better than Tony Pollard, even older and everything like that. So Austin Eckler is going to be great, but what is the impact going to be on Justin Herbert? What is the impact going to be? They're probably going to bring in or draft another wide receiver on Mike Williams or receiver number 2. Are they going to be viable for fantasy? What are your thoughts on that?
I really think Justin Herbert's going to be okay. I think he does have a rushing floor, which is going to, obviously does help.
Yes.
I kind of feel in Dallas for Kellen Moore. I personally feel that Jerry Jones has a lot of pull in what players get the ball and how the game plan works. And I feel he really wanted Elliott and Pollard to get the ball more and not necessarily have it completely centralized around CeeDee Lamb, which which we all know was a mistake and all that. So I kind of feel Kellen Moore is going to have a lot more creative freedom, and I feel that the head coach is going to give Kellen Moore more freedoms and not be so limited compared to in Dallas. So, with Mike Williams, kind of like what you said, if he's there, I think he's going to be fine. I really expect Austin Eckler and the running backs to play a bigger role, and in the screen game, and in the running game as well, because the Chargers offensive line is pretty good. It's not horrible, it's not good, but it's not bad.
It's pretty solid. They just need one piece, really, the right tackle.
Yes. So it's a lot more solid than what it was a couple years ago, and I feel they're going to be solid. But I mean, I could see maybe a small step back from Justin Herbert, but I think he's going to be just fine. I think he's going to sling it. I do expect them to be in a lot of shootouts like they were last year. Honestly, so
it all depends on the defense too, right? Because the one nice thing for Dallas is their defense has been pretty good the last couple of years. It's not been this year was really, really good. This year and last year was very, very good. But before that, it's been middle of the pack, not terrible, not elite, but the Chargers, they've invested so much on that defense, and then they got wrecked by injury this year, just absolutely ruined by injury. So if they can really step it up, maybe that kind of gives them more opportunities on the offensive side of the ball. But that the one thing that worries me, so going through Kellen Moore's game log, they were very heavy in the pass, right? His first year with the team, 10th in total passing attempts in the entire NFL. Year number 2, that's the year that Dak got injured. They were actually second that year, but I think that was the year that they could not get any offense going, so they were constantly behind, so they kind of had to throw a lot more to keep up.
All the time.
Last year, they were 6th, and then this year, they go all the way down to 19th. They dropped off a cliff, and I get it, Dak Prescott missed a few games there early on in the year, but man, that is just very, very worrying for fantasy football. And again, Kellen Moore might be just fine for real life football. Like he's not terrible. He's not great. But for fantasy, I'm just very, very nervous for the weapons outside of Austin Eckler, for Justin Herbert, for Mike Williams, for wide receiver number 2. Are they going to be able to consistently, get these guys involved, or is it going to be, just everything through the run game in Austin Eckler. So that said, if you have Austin Eckler, I think it's going to be a great year, year for him. So definite buy there on Austin Eckler this offseason, even though he is another year older. Until they draft Bijan Robinson, it's full guns ahead with Austin Eckler. So
absolutely.
Conversely, though, we're going from Kellen Moore, who, you know, definitely improved. His usage of Lamb did give me a little bit more optimism for him this year. Mm-hmm. You know, they were able to do it, but the problem with my annoyance was they didn't do it like every opportunity that they could. When CeeDee Lamb was like the only guy, they still weren't able to kind of get him as involved as I wanted them to, right? But, you know, it was a little bit more predictable, things like that. The problem is you're now going from that to Brian Schottenheimer, and Brian Schottenheimer is cheeks. He is one of the worst play callers in the NFL. So give me your quick thoughts on Brian Schottenheimer here.
Yeah, it's with Schottenheimer. You know, I think he was more known for not letting Russ cook, in those Seattle Seahawks teams. So, I think it's going to be a big downgrade for Dak and, you know, CeeDee Lamb. You know, I think they're going to be more run heavy. Well, probably not as run heavy, but I just see a downgrade.
They will be very run heavy. Very run heavy.
Yeah. It's going to be very run heavy. I worry about that for Zeke. You know, I mean, I love Zeke, but, you know, he's kind of past his prime, and then you have Pollard coming off of his injury. I mean, their third string running back looked good, which would have been Malik Davis. Looked good, but it's going to be interesting how much work he gets. So,
yep.
You know, I think Dak is a downgrade. I mean, I would try to sell Dak if I could. So I'm not super excited. I think it's a very interesting hire by, you know, Jerry Jones and the Jones family. Again, it's another interesting hire. So
yeah, it's kind of,
I find it.
Go ahead.
I think it's interesting that, you know, he's wanting to win a Super Bowl, but he's hiring people that aren't.
Got to go through Zeke, man.
Competent.
You got to go through Zeke.
I know.
So yeah, so quick stats. The last time Brian Schottenheimer was an OC was 2018 to 2020 with the Seattle Seahawks. In 2018, the team ranked 32nd in pass attempts, 25th in passing yards. They were pretty high in average, you know, per completion, but it's just not very good there. Russ didn't have them, you know, they were 6th in team points that year, which is crazy. But when you look at it, the rush yards, rush attempts, they were number 1 and number 2 right there in the entire league. 2019, they go from 32nd to at least to 23rd in passing attempts, 12th in passing yards, still pretty highly. You know, he is able to consistently scheme guys open, it looks like, you know, that they're able to produce after they get the ball in their hands, which is something that CeeDee Lamb is going to be very good for. Still very, very high, 4th in rushing yards, 3rd in rushing attempts. In 2020, you know, his last year there, they actually jumped up pretty highly to 17th in passing attempts, 13th in passing yards. That was the first year DK. DK had 1,300 yards as a rookie there, which is pretty good. Mm-hmm. Rushing average, you know, they kind of fell off a little bit, but that was the year that Carson got banged up a lot. Rashad Penny was banged up a lot as well. So, you know, they didn't really have that running back. Now, if they bring back Pollard, Pollard and Zeke will be very good for this system. But the one nice thing, the one good thing is they are going to also have Mike McCarthy. And Mike McCarthy, say what you will about him, you know, I don't think he's the best coach, but the last time that he was a play caller was 2016, and that was for the Green Bay Packers. Now, that's Aaron Rodgers, so it's a little bit of a different story, but that year, it's going to be very interesting to see how these two merge together, because that year they were 6th in passing yards, 5th in passing attempts, which is very opposite of Brian Schottenheimer, right? So, you know, they were 20th in rushing yards, 29th in rushing attempts. So it's like these two are completely polar opposites in a coaching offensive system. So
Yeah.
what are they going to be able to do when they come together? That's going to be the very interesting piece to me. So, it does look like both of these guys are very successful, at scheming up points, which is great, but they just do it in different ways. So, Mike McCarthy, I think the moral of the story is if Tony Pollard is back, he's going to be just fine for this team.
Yeah.
Zeke might be okay as kind of an RB2, 3. Like you mentioned, I think he's kind of well past his prime at this point in time.
Yep.
I think Dalton Schultz is probably gone, so they're going to need a new tight end option. Maybe it'll be Michael Mayer. Maybe that's who they end up going in the first round, something like that. Or they get Mike Gesicki, like I've been calling for like a year now, which would be pretty decent there. But they need a tight end option. They need a wide receiver too. Michael Gallup might be a little bit better next year. He'll be a full year removed from the ACL tear, so maybe a little bit better production. But that team definitely just needs another weapon. They need offensive line help. So, I think that Tony Pollard is probably a buy right now. People are going to be very down on him. He's still going to be very highly valued because of what he was able to do this last year. But I think that he's going to be able to return. Like, I think he's actually depressed right now compared to what his value is going to be going into next year. I think he's going to outproduce whatever you give up for him based on these two schemes kind of merged together. And I think CeeDee Lamb is going to be very good yet again. And I think that they're going to really make him the focal point because, if you think back to Mike McCarthy with the Packers, there was always one wide receiver that was just a beast, whether it was Jordy Nelson or Randall Cobb or, Devontae Adams towards the end of his career. They really featured one guy. And, Brian Schottenheimer kind of did the same thing over in Seattle. So all signs point towards CeeDee Lamb still being a dominant wide receiver. So I'm not panicking on him, but I do agree with you. I think Dak might be the biggest loser for this entire shakeup off like coaching staff wise. So, I think if you can move on from Dak for a good price, now would be a very, very good time.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. So yeah, it's just gonna be interesting how the draft falls for Dallas because I know in years past that Jerry's been very aggressive in getting his guys, and I think he wants to win a Super Bowl before he dies, which
He's not going
maybe
to.
sooner. I know that, and he's like 87 years old or something like that. So it's gonna be interesting how they go towards the draft this year.
Sorry, I'm just blowing my nose on stream here. Don't ever have kids if you can't handle getting sick all the time. It's the worst.
All the time.
It is the worst. I agree with you. So that's pretty much it for these two offensive coordinators. Let us know your thoughts in the comments over on Twitter. While you're listening, if you could just like, comment, subscribe to the video wherever you're listening. We're trying to keep these a little bit shorter. I know yesterday we went a little bit longer with Sean Payton, but I think that Sean Payton has a little bit more of an impact on that whole team. There's a lot of negativity around the Denver Broncos, so we really had to give a lot more insight into that yesterday. So, like I said, if you can, just leave a comment, subscription, whatever it is, just help with the podcast and the algorithm and all that stuff. We appreciate you guys. Follow us over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin. You can follow Dale on Twitter at Dynasty_Dale. Dale, any last thoughts before we get out of here?
Nope.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. Have a good night.